Hey everyone, this is Corno once again, back with another Monster Hunter video. In today's video, I wanted to talk about spin-off games because first and foremost, I'm late to this, but Capcom recently announced the next Monster Hunter game for the series, which is Monster Hunter Riders. Now, Monster Hunter Riders is what I would say a spin-off of a spin-off because of the fact that even though it's based on Monster Hunter stories in terms of aesthetics and general look and gameplay, it's not necessarily based on the same exact storyline, so hence it's a spin-off of a spin-off game. Now, Monster Hunter Riders is one of those games that I got initially excited for, but then my excitement and my hype just completely died down slowly due to the fact that first and foremost, I was expecting this game to be a console release game, more specifically a Nintendo Switch release. Instead, this was a mobile game. Now, I have nothing against mobile games, but I was really hoping that Capcom would do another Nintendo Switch title for the Monster Hunter series, and that didn't happen. And to be quite honest, that was a little bit disappointing for me. The next one, which hugely disappointed me because I kind of expected this with any mobile game, is microtransaction and a gacha-like playstyle. Now, microtransactions is one of those kind of things that mobile games have that could easily break the experience of any mobile game because of paywalls. This means that your progression comes to a complete halt unless you actually pay towards the game, which is something I am expecting with Monster Hunter Riders if mobile games that I've experienced in the past is anything to go by. Now, the final thing that I kind of expected for Monster Hunter Riders at the moment is that there's no Western release as of yet. I'm thinking that this is going to be focused solely on Japan, but I could be completely proven wrong with regards to this particular part. So, depending on the situation, whether or not this comes out to the West will depend solely on whether or not Capcom does well with this game in Japan first, and they do plan to release it in the West. Now, with all of that being said, it's not all kind of negatives when it comes to Monster Hunter Riders, because when it comes to Monster Hunter Riders, what I'm seeing Monster Hunter Riders is Capcom's way of potentially making some form of money in order to contribute towards maybe doing a console spin-off game, which I'm really hoping is the case scenario here. I'm really hoping that Capcom is actually planning to make a console release for a Monster Hunter spin-off game or Monster Hunter mainline game for, more specifically, the Nintendo Switch. Now, the reason for this is because we haven't had another title for the Nintendo Switch that isn't kind of like a port from the Nintendo 3DS. So we did have Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, but that is technically a port of the Nintendo 3DS game. And as of right now, there's really nothing in terms of Monster Hunter games for the Nintendo Switch that's completely new. So what I'm really hoping for is something that's completely brand new for the Nintendo Switch. And when it comes to Monster Hunter Rider, this particular game, I'm really hoping that it does contribute to a potential release of a Monster Hunter game for the Nintendo Switch. Now, some people might be asking why is it that I want to see something like Monster Hunter Stories yet again for the Nintendo Switch. And the reason for this is because Monster Hunter Stories is one of those games that actually inspired certain mechanics in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne, in that the Monster Hunter Stories game had the rider mechanic, and in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne, that kind of evolved into the Tail Raider mechanic that we see in the game as of right now. Now, one of the great things about the Tail Raider mechanic is that it shows that Capcom is more than capable of creating real-time combat mechanics combined with being allies with certain monsters without having to kind of break what we experience in terms of the game itself. So this means that even though the whole kind of being friends with monster thing is not something that we usually see in the mainline series because we originally saw that in Monster Hunter Stories, a spin-off game, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you put it in the mainline series, it's gonna completely break the experience, because we don't get to be friends with large monsters unless we're talking about the Witcher collaboration, where Geralt somehow becomes friends with a Puke. We're not being friends with large monsters, it's always small monsters, and we don't actually control these monsters. They are CPU based, so they do their own thing, which is really awesome in my personal opinion. Now, having said that, I'm hoping that Capcom can actually do a Monster Hunter Stories game where it's real-time combat and it has a tail raider system, but far more evolved, in that we can actually swap between the rider and the monster or the monstie, if you're going by story's term. And then let's say you press the up button, you can mount on your monstie, and then you press the down button and you can do your super moves with your monstie. So that is something that I'm really hoping Capcom can do for the Monster Hunter Stories game. That's why I'm focusing solely on Monster Hunter Stories here, because there's a mechanic in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne as of right now that Capcom could potentially evolve into some form of new combat mechanic if they do a spin-off for it. So it doesn't take away what we know from the mainline series, because a spin-off game is actually kind of like a break from what we know about the mainline series as a whole, and then afterwards Capcom can then give us a game that focuses solely on what we know from the mainline series, which is going to be most likely the next Monster Hunter mainline title. So I'm really hoping that Capcom does this form of spin-off game first and foremost before focusing on the next mainline title for the Monster Hunter series, so that we can have that nice little bit of a break before we get to the next generation of the Monster Hunter mainline title. Now, that is pretty much it for this video. As you can see, I'm really hoping that Capcom does a spin-off game before focusing on to the next mainline game within the Monster Hunter series in and of itself. Now, having said that, whether it be a complete sequel of Monster Hunter Stories with the exact same combat mechanics, or something completely renewed with real-time combat on it, or they port in Monster Hunter Riders for the Nintendo Switch, it doesn't really matter for me personally, as long as we have a Nintendo Switch game that is a Monster Hunter game. In fact, at this point, I wouldn't even mind if they announced the next mainline game for the Nintendo Switch itself in the Monster Hunter series, because as long as we can have another Monster Hunter game for the Nintendo Switch that is completely new, or maybe even a spin-off, as long as it's completely new and unique to the Switch and it's not a port of, let's say, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, then I would be more than happy to have a Nintendo Switch Monster Hunter game. So honestly, whatever Capcom has planned for the Nintendo Switch, if they have anything planned for it in this current moment, I'm really hoping that they give us something for the Nintendo Switch, because the Nintendo Switch is an awesome console. You can play it at home as a home console and you can take it with you on the go, and Monster Hunter on the go is always a huge thing, especially for those of us who have played the previous generation games with something like the PlayStation Portable. So I'm really hoping a Nintendo Switch game for the Monster Hunter series is in the works by Capcom themselves. Now that is pretty much it for me for this video. If you enjoyed these videos, please feel free to leave a like on the video itself, as well as subscribe to the channel so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing, or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.